Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on Smart TVs 2016 forward. It's been 8 years, so maybe we can stop saying that. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Frank. How are you?
I'm good, and I want to welcome everybody who's taking the time to be here. And I want to give a very special friend of mine a happy birthday, Dorothy the beer lady.
Oh,
Dorothy
excellent.
Beermans. She's no, she's not the beer lady. Her name's Beermans.
Ah,
So I like that. I like that. I got to have a friend named Bierman.
well, of course. And you've got to know a few beermen.
Yeah, and
The way
then
it
and
always seems to work, right?
exactly, and then I think next time we look for some friends, maybe named Rum Tada, Hot Toddy, all that stuff. Yeah, happy birthday. She's not feeling well. We were trying to get together for her birthday, and she's got allergies, a cold, and she's terribly stuffed and she has a sore throat. So hope you don't have that. Hope she gets well soon, and I hope nobody else gets it because it sounds terrible. I talked to her for a couple of minutes, and I hate summer colds. They're just terrible.
Yeah, they're no fun at all. And they always seem to hit worse and hit harder than winter colds for some reason. I'm never
Yeah, I
sure
don't know.
why.
I don't get it. I don't. I really don't get it. But here's what I do get. You're watching Candid Frank live, and we're going to talk about everybody's favorite sport. So
Ooh, do tell.
I think we should talk about everybody's favorite sport. What sport would that be? What sport? Oh, yeah. The Canadian Football League is back. Let's start.
uh,
Crank her up, buddy. And I'll put the right graphic on to stimulate the CFL love in everyone. There it is. That's better. That's better.
so, some interesting doings are transpiring just down the QEW here. Um, the Ticats have signed Steve Dunbar Jr. Bo Levi Mitchell is going to have an additional weapon at his disposal here. Uh, Dunbar's played 13 games last season for the Elks, registered 39 receptions for 536 yards with 5 touchdowns. Um, he's from New Orleans, Louisiana. He began his career with the Ticats, where he played 29 regular season games and 3 playoff games over 2 seasons between 2021 and 2022 for 116 receptions for 1,630 yards with 10 touchdowns. He was a CFL East All Star in 2022 after posting a career best 72 receptions for 1,000 yards and 16 TDs. So, spent a little bit of time with the UFL's Houston Roughnecks before heading back to the CFL. Glad to see that he's back in the fold, but also that's going to make things very interesting, especially this Friday when Hamilton will be in Guelph to take on the Argos at Alumni Stadium at Guelph University.
Absolutely. It'll be a great game. They also inked David Menard.
They did. This was actually, I think I kind of expected this. Um, they've signed David Menard as well as Desmond Patmon and 2024 Global Draft first round pick punter Nick Constantino. Menard played all 18 regular season games for the BC Lions last season. Registered 14 defensive sacks and 3 quarterback sacks. I think it was only a matter of time before he was expected to come east. Glad to see that he has. Um, but, it's one of those things where, again, things are going to be even more interesting for the Argonauts come this Friday.
They sure are. And we're all looking forward to seeing the first games in person. I've watched a few games already, and, exhibition games are exhibition games. There's no two ways about it.
There's no way to really be polite about how wow exhibition games are.
Oh my goodness! Here's a great story, one that I find amazingly. I don't know. I'm a bit surprised. The Lions release 8, including Dakota Prukop and Taquan Mizell. Wow, Dakota Prukop is a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, there were rumors going around that Dakota was actually heading east. I'm not sure, Frank, if we found out where he's landed yet, or if there's been any news of assignments.
Ex-Argo.
Yep. Hey, so it'd be interesting to have him back in the fold. I mean, he's certainly something that they could use along with Dukes, especially with Kelly serving his 9-game minimum suspension here. Um, I mean, Prukop signed with the Lions in February after playing 27 games over 2 seasons with the Blue Bombers. He's a short yardage specialist, right? He's somebody you can bring in to punch through the defensive line to get you those last couple of yards you need in order to turn over a first down.
He's got a good arm too.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the Red Blacks, and they released Michael Domagala. Ooh, that's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. He was been released along with defensive lineman Jermaine McDaniel and Jamari Edwards, receiver Dylan Stoner, and defensive back Kalen Jervin. All four of those are Americans. So I'm wondering if there isn't some plan to ship them down to the USFL or UFL for a little while, get them a little more experience in seasoning before bringing them back up. Um, Domagala joined the Red Blacks last September after Lewis Ward was injured and lost for the season. He's a St. Kitts boy. He made 8 of 9 field goals in 2023, and the team extended him with a 1-year contract in the offseason. But it doesn't look like, unfortunately, he was able to stick.
The Stampeders signed American defensive lineman Jacques Bristol.
This was an interesting signing for me. They also, at the same time that they signed Jacques, released American DB Carlins Platel. Bristol recently attended rookie minicamp with the NFL's Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a second-team All-Mid-American Conference at Central Michigan University after recording 44 tackles, including 8 for loss, 4 sacks, and a fumble recovery in 12 games for the Chippewas. So, be interesting to see how he fits in there. I know that they've been rebuilding after a fashion, so it'll be quite an interesting opening for the season.
The Argos Inc. American quarterback John Matocha.
I was wondering how to pronounce his name. Thank you for that, Frank.
Could be Matocha too.
Well, I mean, he's coming off a mini camp with the Broncos after having spent a little bit of time tearing up the record books at the Colorado School of Mines. He finished his collegiate career as college football's all-time passing touchdown leader and total touchdowns responsible for leader. He set a D2 record for career QB rating at 172.4 and most career games with a touchdown pass at 55. So
Wow.
I'm to say I'm a little bit excited to see him with the Argonauts. It would be a bit of an understatement here. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits in, especially with everybody that they already have up front.
Absolutely. Good deal. And then this is the biggest, I think this is the biggest thing we could talk about today. Janarian Grant, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, has been signed by the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, he was a CFL All-Star in 2022. Won 2 Grey Cups with the Bombers in 19 and 21. Extremely happy to see that they've got him. I know a lot of people were complaining during the off-season, especially in February at the start of silly season, that we were losing too many players. But I think that the Argonauts have gone out and adequately addressed those concerns. So very happy to see him in the fold. It's going to be an interesting line this year.
Absolutely. Let's move on to something else. And the something else is auto racing, NASCAR. What's going on?
There's a couple famous names. One of them is Haas. The other is Tony Stewart. Usually most well known for driving the number 20 Home Depot car in NASCAR. He and Haas joined forces. Gene Haas back in 2009 when they formed Stewart Haas Racing. They've now 15 years on here decided that their 4-car Winston Cup, Infinity Cup, NASCAR team was finally ending the end of its sustainable life. They are looking to sell their racing charters. Now, for those of you who aren't in the know when it comes to this sort of thing, a racing charter is basically a pass that you purchase every year that allows you automatic entry every season. They most recently sold a pass, one of their charters, for about $40 million. Now, a lot of team owners have been asking NASCAR to remove the charter from the system, just make them permanent. But the problem is NASCAR makes money every time that they get renewed, so they're obviously not going to do that. The reason why they're moving away from stock car racing is because Gene is spending most of his time with his Formula One team, and Stewart is actually driving a full NHRA schedule, which means both of them are absentee owners at NASCAR events. Uh, the other thing is Gene's health hasn't been the greatest either. He was ill for most of last year. Um, so as it currently stands, they're just winding that down at the end of the season here. Um, so we'll have to see what the future holds.
Staying in the car business, Formula One, Leclerc's win removes Monaco Millstone, sorry, at Ferrari boss hopeful the gap to the Red Bull is closing.
Now this was a particularly exciting race for Charles Leclerc because that's his hometown. He hadn't actually managed to win there or even race well. 8 races into this season so far, Ferrari and McLaren look like they're the ones that are going to be going at it hammer and tongs to challenge Red Bull. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have both had really good seasons for McLaren, and Carlos is going to be moving on to a new team from the Ferrari paddock. So it'll be interesting to see. But the improvements that Ferrari has made over the course of the past 8 to 10 races has been absolutely astounding. So
Sounds like.
Yeah, this was also the fastest parade ever recorded. So not a lot of passing happens at Monaco unless there's a crash. The only crash that happened this year was when Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg both ganged up to take out each other and Checo, Sergio Perez. So
let's move over to hockey and let's talk about the CHL.
So for those who don't know, there's a little thing called the Memorial Cup going on right now. The Moose Jaw Warriors are absolutely ecstatic right now because they've actually qualified for their this is their first Memorial Cup tournament, so they're very happy about that. They're even more excited to record their first win as they beat the Drummondville Vorty Girls 5-3 on Tuesday. This was a must-win game for both of them because they were both winless. The Warriors grabbed an early 3-0 lead on goals by Wojtek Port, Jagger Furkas, Denton Matejczyk. They needed an Aiden Zipchik scored shorthanded goal, in the third period to avoid overtime, and then Braden Yeager added an empty netter with 10 seconds left on the clock. The way that this whole tournament works is there's a team from Ontario that goes, there's a team from the Western Hockey League that goes, a team from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and the host city gets to put in a team. So it's being hosted by Saginaw, so the Saginaw Spirit automatically got a bye, and no surprise, the London Knights were Ontario's representative.
And they happen to have a player the Leafs are going to really need. I mean, if Marner goes,
yeah, there's some kid named after a hockey stick. I believe his name is Easton.
Yep.
He's been putting up some absolute dynamite numbers. I joke, but
he's drafted in the league very low in the first round and has really turned into a godsend. And you know what? His abilities dovetail with what Marner brings to the table. So mind you, though, he's a center, isn't he?
He is a center, but he can play the wing. So it's one of those. He's more of a utility player than anything else.
Play the wing, but he's a center, and that's something the Leafs down the road are going to really need if this kid's any good this year. I mean, Tavares was actually he was kind of impressive well, let's talk about the IIHF, the Czech Republic. Well, it's now known as Czechia, but they beat Switzerland 2-0.
Yeah, so this was a tournament full of surprises. The United States got ousted. Canada ended up playing for the bronze medal game and losing. But then David Pastrnak and Maple Leafs legend David Kampf scored as the Czech Republic shut out Switzerland 2-0. Pastrnak broke the deadlock with 10:47 remaining in the third period. He one-timed it from his usual place in the left circle. That's his office in the same way that Alex Ovechkin has a similar spot.
Absolutely.
Lucas Dostal is best known for goalieing the Maple Leafs. He was playing for Czechia. He got 31 stops from the shutout.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
And let's go to the Women's Hockey League, the PWHL.
Now, for a league that a lot of people I think had doubts about because hey, who watches women's hockey? The PWHL actually had a fantastic first season. I think they made some really good decisions to go with boilerplate jerseys instead of trying to rush uniforms and logos through. Um, they averaged 5,448 fans per game, including a record 21,105 in Montreal's Bell Center last month. They have sponsorship deals with more than 40 companies. Didn't have the playoff race settled until the final regular season game, and were honored Wednesday as the Sports Breakthrough of the Year by the Sports Business Journal. Now, this is where we get to the hard part: is sustaining the interest.
Yeah.
I think based on what we've seen, Toronto has already far outgrown the Mattamy Center and its 2,500 seats. New York, unfortunately, is struggling with attendance, which seems bizarre to me. But I guess they've always
something to do with the Knicks going as far as they did and the Rangers together.
It's possible. I mean, it is one of those things. That there are currently talks to have Toronto move into the Coca-Cola Coliseum, which is where they actually sold out and played all of their playoff games, all their home playoff games. But we're not necessarily going to know who has been spreading that idea around. But I like the idea. The problem is we're hoping MLSC won't jack the rent and force them out or try to buy them off the group that currently owns them. I have a feeling they may find Billie Jean King a bit tougher of a negotiator than other teams that they moved out of Toronto.
Probably. Let's talk about the AHL. We're going around the horn with all the different hockey leagues that are here. And the AHL Roadrunners, if you remember, they used to be the Phoenix Roadrunners. And that's in the WHA days. And now AHL, they're talking about Tucson maybe not being able to last out past 30 games.
Well, and the other thing is they also used to be the Toronto Roadrunners.
Yes.
So
yeah.
it's all about Toronto, right?
That was like almost less than a season, wasn't it?
Pretty much, unfortunately. But yeah, the AHL affiliate of the Arizona Coyotes announced on Tuesday that the team is going to be playing at least 30 games at Tucson Arena next season. Alex Marullo wanted to move the team to Mullet Arena in Tempe, which, as far as I'm concerned, based on their attendance numbers, would have been a terrible idea because while it may have been a sellout, you're losing fans and there's the additional travel that you're looking at there. Marullo sold the Coyotes to the Utah Jazz owners Ryan and Ashley Smith. The Roadrunners are probably going to play a handful of games at Mullet, but the majority of the games that are going to be played are going to be at the Tucson Arena.
Very good. Very, very, very good. Let's go to the National Hockey League. Rangers in Florida. Rangers can't capitalize on another dominant Shesterkin performance. Drop game 4 of these finals.
This is a case now where New York is leaning really, really heavily on their goalie, and you can tell that I think it's starting to wear on him a little bit.
It can also be that the that Florida is wearing down the Rangers.
Oh, that's very true. The way that Florida plays their game, they attack in waves. It just doesn't stop.
They grind you till pulp.
Yeah. The brand of physical hockey that they play, there's a lot of people like to joke about the way that Paul Maurice coaches. They like to call him Prison Rules Paul because everything seems to go in the playoffs.
It was that way with Winnipeg. Winnipeg was the same thing.
Yeah, they were a team that would hit you and hit you and hit you and grind you and grind you and grind you and there's no escaping it. And we were watching me and the missus were watching the game the other night, and we're just like, yeah, they come in waves, and you can see the momentum building, and you can see the ice slowly starting to tilt against the New York Rangers, just based on the way that the Panthers were playing. So,
next,
what are you going to do?
About Dallas and Edmonton. Come on, Edmonton.
I feel like poking Edmonton with a stick saying, do something.
No kidding. I'm definitely feeling that way. And Nick Robertson was benched a couple of games before this one, and now
Jason.
he comes back in. I see, that's right, Jason. Sorry. Anyway, not Nick. Um,
Nick Sculpin.
yeah, yeah, and he ends up getting a hat trick.
Yeah, he got a couple quick goals out of it. The Oilers really came out hard in the first period. They really walked it to to Dallas. Um, they got themselves out to a quick 2-0 deficit. Took that into the first period. Then Jason Robertson said, "To heck with it! I'm putting this team on my back." And before you knew it, it was tied up, and they just kept going.
And Edmonton completely stopped.
I'm not sure what it is. This Edmonton team, has all of the offensive weapons to absolutely obliterate any of the opponents that they face, and they haven't been able to do it. And it's just,
Offense is far harder to come by in the playoffs.
well, that, and you got to look at their backstop, and you got to look at their depth scoring, which they're currently not getting. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's one of those.
I'm pulling for Edmonton. Oh, Canada. No shame
Yeah.
here.
No, as the last Canadian team in the playoffs, I'm definitely pulling for the Oilers too.
Let's not make it 33, or is it 33? Let's not make it 34.
It's far too many.
93, 31.
Yeah. So let's not make it 32.
93, yeah, 31. Yeah, 31. Okay. I know Montreal Canadiens were last team to win in Canada. Okay, let's switch over to the news, and let's talk about Blair announces billions in training equipment deals at military trade show.
So there's a big show that goes on called CanSec, the Canadian Association of Defense and Security Industries. It's an annual trade show in Ottawa. While he was inside announcing all of this sort of thing, there's $73 billion worth of projects and procurements over the next 20 years, including an additional $8.1 billion in spending over the next 4. This brings the country closer to the NATO alliance target of spending about 2% of GDP on defense, which is, what they're technically supposed to be doing, but still falls short at just 1.76% of the 2% that they're supposed to be spending by 2029, 2030. This is on the heels of a group of 23 U.S. senators signing a signed letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, saying they were concerned and profoundly disappointed that Canada would not meet its obligations by the end of the decade.
Oh boy.
Yeah, well, the government's on a very clear path, and plans to grow defense spending by 27% next year over this year. But that increase also requires that we spend that money well, that we produce real value for the investments that Canadians are making in national defense. He did note that the defense policy does not include cost estimates for projects the government has yet to begin, like the plan to purchase a fleet of submarines, for example. His announcement Wednesday was for a $2.5 billion deal to buy logistics vehicles for the Army and an $11.2 billion deal for flight training for RCAF pilots. The 25-year flight training deal that he mentioned is with Skyline Canada, which includes classroom training, simulations, and the purchase of 70 training aircraft. So that's going to be a welcome addition.
Absolutely. House Speaker, PCs tried to get rid of the House Speaker, survives again.
Yeah, I think it's just the 3rd or 4th time that they've tried to get Greg Fergus booted. The effort to oust Fergus failed by a vote of 168 to 142 after the NDP sided with the Liberals, with both parties accusing the Conservatives of trying to undermine democracy and its independent institutions. This is actually the 3rd time in less than 8 months that the Conservatives have called on Fergus to step down. They're insisting that Fergus is too partisan, including his decision last month to expel their leader, Pierre Poilievre, from the House after he called the Prime Minister a wacko.
Wow.
There's a certain amount of decorum that is supposed to go on in Parliament. Name calling and insults like that, schoolyard insults like that, have no place in Parliament.
if our politicians can't behave in a manner that our children who are learning about, about governing, about government, if they can't watch what's going on, then there's something wrong. If they have to deteriorate into morons, like the only wacko is the person who says something like that. That's a wacko talk. So ridiculous. I'm not a big fan of Justin Trudeau right now, and I know a lot of people aren't either. There's a lot of, but when it comes to respecting who people vote for, you have to show respect for if whoever gets elected. You have to respect the voters that voted for them and they won, and leave it at that. But we're in a contentious time, Aaron. Where it seems you're rewarded for the bigger the jerk you are, the more you're rewarded, which is sad. That's sad in my book.
I just think a lot of politicians have forgotten that the whole idea behind being the opposition is not just to oppose, it is to propose viable alternatives to what the current party in power has proposed as well. The whole idea behind the opposition is not to just block everything and stop everything, it's to help guide the country. So, if you want to just sit there in Parliament and hurl insults, or call the Speaker of the House a partisan hack and be rude about it, you're going to get tossed out of the House. It's going to appear that he's partisan because you're being, quite frankly, a jackass, and that's not how politics works
Or should work.
or should work.
Yeah, and well, anyway, enough about that. I guess I think the point is made. Let's call it for what it is. Tory bid focus pharmacare bill falls at committee, fails at committee.
Yeah, the Liberals and NDP who have been collaborating on a national pharmacare bill, um, they're basically saying, look, we know that you guys are focusing right now on diabetes medication and contraceptive medication, but the whole idea behind us providing this national health care is to provide a framework for us to build on. National health care is a house. You can't just throw stuff out there willy nilly and hope that it stays up. You're in construction, you know this. You
Yeah.
have to have an adequate foundation and a framework, and that's what this current bill is. Um, the conservatives are saying, well, you're just, you know, you're excluding the people that make Ozempic from this. Why? And I'd like to know how much the company that makes Ozempic has donated to conservative health critic Stephen Ellis's campaign to wonder why he's focusing so much on that particular aspect of it.
Hmm.
But like they basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, we're going to limit what's in this bill by trying to redefine the focus. And the liberals and NDP are like, well, no, we can't have that because we need to be able to add or remove medications as needed to best suit the health outcomes that Canadians need.
Well, meet the needs that are most needing fulfillment. Okay, so PI milk being tested for avian influenza as precautions ramp up.
Yeah. Now, because there is an outbreak of the H5N1 virus in the States, um, uh, in cows, it can result in decreased milk production, loss of appetite, and fever. The virus has not yet been detected in Canadian dairy cattle, and all tests of commercial milk for fragments of H5N1 have also been negative. But the CFIA has started preventative testing of of cattle entering Canada from the States, and this is going back to April 29th. Because the H5N1 virus is as active as it is in the States, this is forcing HFIA to be more proactive when it comes to cows that are coming here.
A concern for parents. St. Mary's High School in Kitchener closed Wednesday due to threatened violence.
Yeah, St. Mary's High School is closed. The Waterloo Regional Police are currently investigating a report of a threat of violence. They received a call to their communications center earlier in the morning, indicating that the threat of violence was being planned at the school for that same day. As a safety precaution, investigators did get in touch with the school board officials and they worked with them on a safety plan for the students and staff. Um, The school is to remain closed for the course of the entire day while police investigate the credibility of the threat. An email from the school's principal was sent to students and staff. According to some grade 11 students, they didn't receive the email, which is why they still showed up for classes, um, which is concerning because if the school's emails to advise students that there is potential dangers getting routed to spam, students will need to fix that in their filters.
Absolutely. A new avian,
Yep,
ner-
that's
yeah, okay. New avian virus has appeared for the first time in southern Ontario. It's confusing with the bird flu.
yes.
And
Now
it's not the bird flu.
it's a flu of birds, but not the bird flu. It's called avian metapneumovirus subtype B, or AMPVB, which attacks the respiratory system of birds and is especially problematic for poultry. Um, it's resulted in the deaths of over 250 turkeys in southwestern Ontario in recent months, according to the World Animal Health Information System. Um, there were 166 birds at a farm in Center Wellington, north of Guelph, and 87 birds at a farm in Huron-Kinloss in Bruce County. Um, because this is going to potentially affect a lot of farmers and a lot of people who feed birds, um, it could result in shortages. Now, um, we want people to be aware that avian metapneumovirus does not present a food safety risk or human health concern. It is simply at this point deadly to birds, but that's still something that we need to be aware of. It's currently still manageable, but as it is with other diseases, there's going to be some hard times here as people adjust and get their flocks inoculated.
Absolutely. Nurse police teams expanded as part of a downtown Windsor revitalization.
So this goes back to something that we've been going back and forth with for the past several years here, Frank, on the show, in particular about reallocating funding for police to better serve the public and their needs.
And
Um,
appropriate funding for appropriate needs.
exactly. Um, Windsor Police Chief Jason Belair said that teams made up of police and Windsor Regional Hospital staff will now operate 7 days a week from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. up to 3 days a week. Additionally, Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare is also expanding its partnership with Windsor Police by increasing their personnel complement, while the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team has been merged with the Community Outreach and Support, or COAST team, to form a frontline focused crisis response team. This is because, unfortunately, a lot of people who are homeless and who are in certain addiction centers and homeless shelters have mental health crises and other issues that police aren't adequately trained to treat. So by
Mhm.
pairing them up with these nurses and social workers, they're better able to effectively serve and help the populations.
Absolutely. Thunderstorm threat lingers over the prairies as severe weather risks move to the east.
So this is as at 9:30 this morning. There's a multi-day thunderstorm threat spanning the prairies this week, with the chance for severe conditions bubbling up over a few areas like Yorkton and Dauphin and Arborg. There's the risk of funnel clouds in parts of central Alberta. That's always fun. So it's important to keep an eye on any watches and warnings that are issued, as conditions can change quickly. Thunderstorms are going to be moving uh, over the course of Wednesday evening into Saskatchewan. Um, the real issue was the thunderstorm threat that returned to Alberta on Tuesday, but it is slowly progressing eastward here. Strong wind gusts and large hail, are possible. So it's something to be aware of when your phone beeps at you or your radio beeps at you. Pay attention.
Absolutely. BC moves, Calgary Public School pulling from reserves to pay for operations next year.
So the CBE, or Calgary Board of Education, says it's making do with the funds it's been given after finalizing its $1.6 billion budget for next year this past Tuesday. While school board trustees say they've continued to prioritize students in the latest financial plan, they've noticed a funding shortfall coming from Danielle Smith and her UCP party. According to them, the funding doesn't go far enough to alleviate ongoing pressures the city's public education system is facing, and the CB will have to pull $2.6 million from its reserves to pay for operations in the upcoming school year. Strains like inflation, increased enrollment, as well as challenges in meeting the needs of students with complex learning requirements were mentioned by trustees. Um, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed, and unfortunately, the province doesn't seem to be willing to come up with the rest of the cash. Alberta Education typically provides about 90% of the CBE's fundings. Um, they did grant an additional $85 million year over year to allow for the hiring of 600 new teachers. But the problem is the buildings are getting older, the class sizes are expanding. There's currently a push on in Alberta to try to get Ontarians and people from the east to move to Alberta. They're not, the government, while they're trying to get more people in, isn't doing enough to address the issue of the fact that they're boosting population, and that's where the
Absolutely.
concern comes in.
Well, it is, part of the way Canada actually started, right? That was the whole point of the railway. BC moves to regulate psychotherapy. Sorry.
Yeah, the government says it's going to be consulting with the public for the next month or so, and then decide whether or not to formally regulate psychotherapy. If the province decides to regulate, a new regulatory college will have to be formed, and regulations around responsibility, scope of practice, and more will be created. Right now, anyone can call themselves a therapist and advertise their services in BC, uh, seeking support for mental and emotional health. They don't need any training, and there's no official body with legal powers to hold them accountable for any damage that they may cause. So, that dude on his TikTok who's telling people to go out and touch grass and eat more creatine and, all that sort of stuff can't be held liable for any damage that his advice over the internet causes if he calls himself a psychotherapist. Um, Erica Penner, she's a clinical psychologist and director of public advocacy for the BC Psychological Association, says, you know, psychologists have been regulated in BC for over 20 years, and we've seen what a difference that makes in terms of assuring the quality of service that we offer. Um, we're not entirely sure why those who practice psychotherapy in BC aren't regulated in the same way.
Absolutely. Suspended Vancouver lawyer ordered to pay neighbor $30K for time spent dealing with pseudo legal lawsuit.
So there was a lawyer by the name of Naomi Arbabi. She sued her neighbor Colleen McClelland over the installation of a privacy divider on the deck. It's a glass divider that was put up that split the deck. She had been suspended when she launched her lawsuit, um, and she's been ordered to pay $30,000 in court. In costs. She claimed trespass against her neighbor Colleen McClelland um, when the glass divider went up, but you know the judge dismissed the case and ordered Arbabi to pay special costs, money generally awarded as a punishment for conduct that the court deems to be reprehensible. Is how it was phrased by the judge. They could settle the costs for just over 14.2 if Arbabi played by March 8th. However, Arbabi agreed to the dollar amount, but said she would pay in installments over the next 40 years. So, and this is where we're at here.
Wow, that's amazing stuff that goes on in the world today. It's we've got quite a bit of time left here. Is there, we haven't talked about the Orange Genius for a while.
True. I think we've been trying to avoid him, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, I his lawyer referred to a witness, and you know who I mean, as a gloat, the greatest liar of all time. He's not even the greatest liar of all time in that room.
No,
he's not even in that room. He's the greatest liar of all time.
My brain is shorting out here, Frank, every time I hear about some of the claims that he's putting forward. I don't know if you've seen the sheaf of papers that he gets, but he has an assistant in the courtroom
Right.
that scours news on her phone for positive stuff that she prints in a
Yep.
little printer that she has beside her for him to read out after he gets done in his in court section sessions. Sorry, and it's just the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Some reporters saw it because he was holding it up, and it's all, stuff that people are saying that's positive. Um, in this business about taking statements and making statements that he doesn't care how dangerous what he says is. And in fact, I think we can fairly say, I think with total certainty, I think, is the more onerous what he says is, the happier he is. He's looking for ways to incite people's anger. That's who he is. And we talked about the conservatives in Canada doing kind of the same thing in that regard, when it comes to the speaker and or the way they talk. Unfortunately, you know, it pays off. They're getting the idea that it pays off. And sometimes I think the biggest problem with passive people is that they're passive. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you remember a long time ago while he was in power, the word came out that he was talking about his followers and why he believes they can take over and they can dominate others. Our people are the people with the guns. That's what he said, right? Our people are the people with the guns. So we know what he's thinking and we know what he's trying to do. And it's hard to believe that it just, there seems to be nothing to stop, the it really is. It looks like the U.S. is going to drive into the ground. It's really looking bad.
Well, I mean, there have been people that have been warning about this slow descent into authoritarianism. Um, the people that are actually trying to claim that Joe Biden is an authoritarian fascist figure um, aren't really helping themselves. They've been unaware of the creeping rot that's been at the center of American politics for quite a few decades now, and seem to be unwilling to acknowledge facts which point incontrovertibly to the fact that the weaponized turnip that they're currently backing, who's in a New York courtroom 3 days a week, is a large part of the problem.
Well, it's very disappointing to me because I just like, as far as I'm concerned, look, Biden's old. There's no defending him on age. It's impossible, Aaron. You can't defend him on age. Um, America has for a very long time, just like when America went into the war in Iraq, it was based on a lie. And this is something that politicians have been affirming and practicing, and we have seen the legal system say it's okay to lie in politics. It's okay to lie in politics. That's part of free speech. And I got to tell you, I just wish the truth meant something. And that to me is what's being lost more than anything, is the ability to tell the truth and have an honest conversation.
And the problem we get is those on the left are set and determined that their way is right and it leads to freedom. And those on the right believe that those on the left are pinky commies that should be stomped out of existence at the end of a gun. It's the way that this has been set up. And I wish
The way it's moved, it's
every election cycle, the center gets jacked further and further to the right. And while the positions of those on the left have not significantly changed, we are made to seem more radical by the fact that the center has been moving away from us because it's being pulled that way by the right.
well, the more you can reinvent reality, the more you can say things that fire people up, anger people. The motivation in politics today is personality, not issues. And that's the part that I lament. It's not about issues, it's about people, persons. characters. You know, it's you know what we saw it in Canadian Parliament, where we saw, you know, insulting language, which to me has no place in politics, because there should be in politics the understanding that the opposition isn't the enemy. They're the competition. They're the competition for ideas. They're the competition for selling their ideas. It's the ideas and the issues that you want to promote that should be firsthand, not the fact, do you like Trudeau? No, I can't stand him. I can't stand him either. And they roll on this hate, and then they end up sidetracked in not really understanding what it is that he does specifically, right? Or work on specifically what he's doing wrong that needs to change, because they're too busy attacking him personally and not attacking his policies. So for me, it's about people, it's not policies. And I wish we could go to that part where policies are what we discuss, not our personalities.
I try to bring it up every election cycle. I try to tell people, don't vote for the guy who says what you like. Vote for the guy whose party platform shows what you like.
Well, and you know, the problem is too, is that Aaron, I think also the other issue is that we could list 20 issues, right? We could list 20 things you want to work on. We talked about a couple here today, where, you know, with healthcare and pharma being controlled in regards to not overpricing, grocery stores not charging, you know, mega profits at a time when inflation is running amok, and one wonders if that inflation is just being pushed by greed. All these issues take a back seat to personality, and that's the part that bothers me. We should be more interested in deciding if Trudeau's idea about carbon tax is, it sucks, right, for people. I don't mind if somebody says we're going to vote him out because we don't believe in the carbon tax. That's cool. I like that. I like that
Yeah.
way of thinking, right? But not to say we don't like him because he's a blah 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 blah. You know, vote for the party, not that says how bad the other people are, the opposition. Vote for the party that has the kind of ideas that you think will help your country do better. The negativity is something I'm tired of. I'm tired of it. I truly am tired of the negativity. It has nothing but it just drops us into a place where we're not productive anymore. And we're watching what happens politically. You know, you have, as you said, and in this program you mentioned, and it, you know, it happens in the U.S. too, where they're so busy hating on each other, they're not doing anything to make the country better.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to sit there and flap your gums about how bad the other guy is, but unless you're offering me a viable alternative, what are you doing? You know?
Well, Donald Trump is a perfect example of what's wrong in politics. When his people, and I say his people because his party, some of the most conservative members of the Senate that exist in the Senate, come up with this idea how to help the problems at the border, and they come saying, and all of, you know, a majority of them are saying, geez, I'm surprised this is this good. We can't even get something like this with us in power. In other words, with our president in power. And we've got to vote for this, because when the Democrats are controlling things, they're not going to go for something like this, because it really goes against some of the things that they believe in, which is why the hard left, at least in Canada and the US, is trying to take a back seat. And maybe it's because of what you said, because the center is moving further and further right, where they're willing to take stuff and allow stuff to happen that works against their beliefs, and then have it thrown in their face. It's unbelievable, Aaron. It's unbelievable, because a guy running for a party frankly says, hey, look, we can't let that law pass. It'll work and they'll get all the credit for it. So passing a law that helps the people's bad because you're not passing it and you might not get elected. So what's your priority again? Explain to me your priority. What's your priority?
And that's what kills me too. It's like, this is one of the best border deals that you ever could have had. and you've been on television 24/7 bleating about how it's an absolute crisis at the southern border and there's rapists and murderers and killers, and this bill comes across your desk. But
And you look at it and you like it. You start talking about how good it is, and then somebody says, "No, I don't like it."
how much of a border crisis is it if it can wait until 2025?
It's not. It's
You know?
again, again, again. It's not about doing things that are good for the country. It's only about, the forefathers of the American experiment that is democracy. They did not like the idea. There's a lot written where they talked about parties and that parties are a bad idea. And the reason they're bad is because eventually what happens, and the prediction came true. Eventually what happens is you take party over country.
Yep.
When you do party over country, that's time to end parties. That it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, the selfishness that we see today in various circles, it's really it's frustrating to say the least, Aaron.
Frustrating and entirely disheartening.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be selfish at this point and say, I've had enough. I'm moving on.
Perfect.
I'm going to do something else now. That's it for tonight.
All right.
He's Aaron William Freeland. For Aaron William Freeland, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live. It was so much fun doing this for you.
Glad to be here, Frank, and we'll see you hopefully Friday, if not Monday.
We gotta see what goes on. I might be going to the game, but it's a real trek that it's not a very tempting drive from here.
No, that's very true. You're a little bit further north than I am.
It's literally I got to go the same way you got to go, but I got to get to you first. It's going to take me like 45 minutes, an hour. No, what am I talking about? An hour and a half to get to where you are, and then I'll move on, keep going to Guelph. So it's about a 2-hour and change drive, both ways. Night game.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, airing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. And don't forget, Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube. Ciao for now, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the week.